Bro, I'm pumping off adrenaline. I'm way too in my element. I know there's people better than, but right now who is better than? A man that's working hard as shit, trying to find a pot to piss.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Extreme Lifestyle Living Podcast. Now, usually I tell a little bit of an update as to what I'm doing with my life, and sometimes I've been ranting about the podcast and things like that. But I have an idea as to how I'm going to bring the podcast to light. I've been trying to do the videos, but to be honest, it just doesn't align with the work that I'm doing right now and in many other areas of my business, with my clients, my team, and it causes a lot of stress on my end. And that's kind of the relation to the topic of the podcast today, is to just jump right into it, is, you're always in control despite how you feel. And, I think there's a big correlation with everyone that's really ambitious, that's goal-oriented, that wants the best version of themselves, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that, sometimes you lose control, whether it's on your nutrition plan or your standards with food. You feel like you're out of control sometimes by maybe not eating the foods you want, or maybe you're with your workouts, your schedule is a little bit crazy and you feel like you don't have as much control over when you can go to the gym and how you can control moving your body and planning it throughout each week. And, especially when you are ambitious and goal-oriented from a mental health standpoint, sometimes you just feel anxious, like you feel a lot of animosity, you feel like things are all over the place, and you're almost question what you're doing sometimes, and sometimes you lose sleep because you're stressing out, or you have busy days and you got to get up early. And, I kind of related to that typical Monday to Friday grind where it's Sunday, let's say you have a perfect reset. Monday, you get into the week with the perfect intentions. By Wednesday, Thursday, you're shot. You're tired, you're stressed, you can't focus. You're having trouble doing the same things that you were doing through the course of the week, and you need to kind of rejuvenate your cup and rejuvenate your soul and refuel. And, life gets crazy. And I was talking to one of my good friends the other day about, he's building a business, he's building a team, he's doing fucking phenomenal. He's been doing it for the last 7-8 years. And the last 9 months has been incredible amounts of growth. He's added on 7 employees. He's got over a certain amount of clients now. A lot of things are going super, super well. And, things feel chaotic for him. Things feel all over the place. And, I relate to that as well, because I remember when I was starting to build this business and this community and do the podcast and all these different avenues of to create my financial freedom, my mental freedom, and just life that I'm living currently. And there's a big part of when you're creating your life that you want, where you have to figure out what it is that you want. So a lot of the things in front of you have a lot of control over, because you're in control of what you're doing, because you don't have anything yet. If you want a business, you don't have a business yet, you can control your time to get that business. If you're not going to the gym and you're not focused on your fitness and you want to be able to control your life to be able to get into better shape, you haven't done it yet. So you can control your schedule to a degree to get that in momentum. And same with your career. Right now, if you don't have a career that you want, you have control with what you're doing currently in your day-to-day and week-to-week and month-to-month life to put down new layers of life to build that life. And I think the reason why I'm highlighting that so much is because, we work to get the freedom we want. And then it's we build up freedom, we build up the life that we want. And then we're just so into the trenches of our goals that's when we lose control. We feel like we don't really know what we're doing sometimes. And, we've all had it in the gym. How many times have we went to the gym and you're sitting there in the treadmill, you're sitting there doing a certain exercise, or you're eating a certain amount of food and you're tracking your calories and you're like, why the fuck am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And I think that's why I love that quote, where you are now is where you prayed to be, because a big correlation of, feeling like you're not in control is realizing where you are at in your life to have that control, because where you are now is maybe unfamiliar territories. It's not as comfortable as your life used to be. So it's a one part of the journey, whether it's from a fitness goal, whether it's from building a business or changing your career or changing your mental health and your boundaries. You do a lot of research and almost education on yourself to figure out what it is that you need to do. And then eventually you figure out what you need to do. You figure out what you need to do for your fitness, your nutrition. You figure out what you need to do for your career. You figure out what you need to do to build maybe a business or get some movement going for certain areas of your life. And then the next step is doing the business, doing the work, showing up in the gym, showing up in the, the career side of things. Are you doing education? Are you just getting a new job? Are you doing training? Is there probationary periods? You got new boundaries for yourself. You got to practice protecting those. You got to practice making sure your mindset gets used to those. Especially if you have anxiety or depression, maybe it's journal routine, maybe it's going to a therapist, maybe it's embracing emotions, all these things. You start doing the work. And when you're doing the actual work to change your life, that is when you get kind of lost in the sauce. It says, it's funny to say, but you're so deep in the trenches, you almost feel like you lose control. And the reason why I think that's such a highlighted part of this podcast right now is because no matter how chaotic things are, you're always in control. Because remember, if you are starting from point 1 to build a business, point 1 to get a better career, point 1 to get a better fitness level and nutrition level, you know what you need to do to make the initial changes. But to get to point 2 to point 3, that's where you start to feel like you're losing control. And this is where it's and it's not 100% correct with what I'm about to say, but that's when you got to double down on what got you here. Prime example for me, myself, Prime example for people out there that are tracking their nutrition and tracking their, their workouts, and maybe trying to get the education with their work, or, get more financial gain at work, and maybe build a business or a little bit of a movement. You got to realize that, how you got there was systemizing your days, being proud of yourself, protecting your energy, protecting your mental health. And then eventually you just get so caught up with all the work that you needed to do to see the growth that you were trying to figure out what you needed to do, that now you just are so lost with doing the work that you got to revert back to the foundational stuff that got you here in the first place. Prime example for me, where I'm at now in my life, the very first time that I started to build my life in this regard was getting up at 4:30. I worked 10 a.m. until 7 p.m. I was doing my personal training course. I was doing my my mentorship program to build the podcast and learn how to all the infrastructure with that, and my message behind it, why I wanted to do it. And I had a side job that I worked 12 hours a week at. So I had my schedule in front of me from a week to week standpoint of where I was working 10 to 7 and my other 12-hour shifts. So then I could pinpoint my schedule as to where I needed to be at certain times. So I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I was putting 2 hours into my mentorship program in the gym and my personal training course. And I would go to work, and then I would come back, and then I would put some more time into those things because I had the clarity. I knew exactly what I needed to do to get to that next level. However, and I'm very verbal and honest about this, when I got into that next level of my life, when I got into that next level of like being completely financially free from another job, and I had all of my freedom. It's not financially free like I'm making millions of dollars. I'm not by any means. However, I don't got to work for nobody else. So when that came to fruition and I had just myself to control my schedule, I just worked all the time. And that's great, but then I felt like I wasn't in control anymore. I felt like there was just a fire that I was trying to catch up with every single day because I wasn't systemized, I wasn't regulated, I wasn't doing all the same things that I once was doing because I didn't really need to. And a lot of you guys got to realize that too. Like a lot of the things you guys have done for your fitness goals, your boundaries, your career, and other areas of your life, you don't need to do them anymore because you've grown. You've become way better people. You've actually accomplished a lot of your goals, which is why I love the whole where you are now is where you prayed to be. But now you got to double down on those things that have got you here. All of prime example with nutrition. For you to get in physically better shape, you had to commit to going to the gym a certain amount of times, despite what life threw at you. And there was a point where you had that energy to do that. Then you grow. You get a new level of life, you get comfortable in the gym, and you kind of stop protecting those boundaries. And then next thing you know, you feel like you lost control. All you got to do is go back to controlling the outcome by going to the gym at allocated times. Is it going to be messy? Is it going to be chaotic? Are you still going to feel like you're not in control? 1000%. But that's how you regain that control. Same with nutrition. You didn't just wake up and understand what macros and micros are. You didn't just wake up and understand what MyFitnessPal was and meal planning and all these things. You showed up, you put time into it, you meal prepped, you learned the process, and then eventually you got so systemized and regulated that you just kind of lost translation with that. So now things feel chaotic and hectic because you've been putting in the work, your life has changed, but you kind of, not say got comfortable, but again, you get comfortable and you almost got to, again, goes back to why you got to reflect and be proud of where you're at, because then you can have the clarity to focus back on the foundation. But same with your career. Like a lot of us, like from a cheesy standpoint, like says it's an easy example, get education for our schools. Get education from school, Get education from certificates and learnings and trainings and probationary periods to then do a job. But then after you're doing the job, that's all you do is have to do the job. So that same energy, the same clarity around getting to that next level is almost becomes like you don't have control of it, and you just almost feel like you're lost into the abyss, and you're like, how do I do this and what's going on? And all you have to do is go back to what you did in the beginning. So for me, when I realized there was a whole year of, I've been doing this full time now, going on 3 full years. But like even this morning, me and Emma had a little bit of a morning, because we always do our morning routines together. We do our journal routines, we do our tasks for the day, we do our gratitude list, and we share like what the kind of energy is for today. And since today's Sunday, I have to redo a schedule for myself because I'm just in that process of working again. And, I was very regimented before at home in Nova Scotia, where I got up at the same time. I did a little bit of work, went to the gym, came back, did some work, and then X, Y, and Z. But now that I'm in Tulum and I'm in Mexico and living my life here, I just started working again because I got caught up in this new transition of life and being excited being here. And I had that extra fire into my ass. But now it's starting to be at the expense of my quality of life. I'm starting to feel like burnt out again. And things are like, one night of getting a lot of rest is now lagging into 3 or 4 days of kind of feeling like shit. I'm beating myself up. I feel disappointed because I'm not as clear in my work, and I feel like I'm not in control. And at the end of the day, I am in control. What got me here was waking up at a certain time, getting my head on my shoulders, having clarity on the day, and being in control, being proactive. And that's kind of the story, that's kind of the main message I want you guys to get out of life is, you got to figure out what you want to do with your life, and then you work towards getting that life. Then you get that life, you get comfortable in that life, you reflect on that life, be proud of that life, And it's the same repetitive process where you got to protect your energy and who you are as a person to continue that life and that growth. Because it's not bad that you get caught up in life and you want to enjoy it. That's not the thing. Like prime example with my good friend that has a business now, he's super, super busy. He has 7 employees that are helping him run his business. Now he is doing so much for these people, continuing the growth. He has so much more clients on his production team that he's like, helping and doing all these different tasks now. And before it was a one-man show. So like, when we had a conversation, it was like, as much as it may sound counterproductive to say fuck all of that and put more time into yourself, we are the drivers of our life. And sometimes we try to build, like, we build a car up, we got to drive it to this next version of our life, whether it's a mental, physical, emotional, spiritual side of our life. And eventually we're driving that car so consistently that, we take a back seat. And that's why we feel like we lost control. So to regain control, you got to do what you did to get yourself in the front seat in the first place, which is your morning routines, your nighttime routines, protecting your boundaries, focusing on your non-negotiables. And again, it's not about reinventing the wheel and setting another high-ass standard and be like, okay, well, I'm already going to the gym 4 days a week, 5 days a week. Let me go 6. I'm already meal prepping and doing this. Let me track my macros every day. It's not about that. I get caught up in that as well, where it's like you almost chase perfection. And again, it's great to have high standards. It's great to be ambitious and aim for the fucking stars. That's the whole reason why you're here in the first place, is being that ambitious person and showing the fuck up and really, like, like that quote says, biting the mouth guard and fucking going through life and getting hit and hitting life. But you got to protect yourself. And that's why you feel like you lost control, and you're always in way more control than you realize when you take a deep breath, you take a step back, and you just realize that, what got you here is what's going to continue to get you there, by protecting your boundaries, by protecting your energy, making sure that you are in the most clear spot in your life. That's the best way I can put it. You want to make sure you're being proactive and not reactive. And sometimes we're so proactive in our life that we get that life that we want on many different avenues that we never thought was imaginable. And then we just become reactive to controlling that life. And at the end of the day, we had to continue to be proactive. And, I'm the one that's creating the business. I'm the one that has all the clients. I'm the one that has all the podcasts. I'm the one that has everything going on. So if they're all driving the seat, I'm always going to be in the back seat. If they're the one that's in control, I'm always going to be reactive. So I have to now double down on a routine, double down on becoming a version of myself that I want to be, to control it all, just like I was before. Just like all of you guys were before. There was a point in your guys' lives where you guys didn't even care about fitness. There's a point in your guys' lives you didn't even know nothing about nutrition. There's a point in your guys' lives you guys didn't know anything about your career, anything about retirement, anything about that's like stressing you out or making you feel like you don't have control. There's a point in your life where you felt like you had a bunch of control and didn't even think of these things. So embrace it, understand what it is for yourself, and then just double down on the things that got you here, which is you protecting that energy, being proud of yourself, and showing the fuck up in the regards that make you feel your best. If you drink on the weekends with your friends because you're enjoying life, but that doesn't serve where you want to go, cut it out for a few weeks, cut it out for a few months. If you're missing a couple of gym sessions because work is too busy, or you're missing meal prepping these things because life is too busy, figure it out and cut that shit out. Protect those times, get better at it. If you feel like, your career is stagnant because you're just not growing as much as you want to, but you've grown a lot within recently, like over the last past years, or you've actually in a different career standpoint than you were before, guess what? Take a step back and figure out how you can get continued education to feel that much better with it. And sometimes it's like, you guys have already done all the work. It's nothing crazy. So all you got to do is protect the energy, protect who you are, and what got you here is going to get you there. By doing your morning routines, by doing your nighttime routines, by sticking to the fucking schedule, making you feel the best version of yourself to put yourself back in that driver's seat, because you guys are always in control a lot more than you guys realize, despite how you feel. And that right there is the beauty of life, because life is always meant to make you feel like you're not in control. And we could have a cheesy conversation, just talk about how technically we're not in control, but that's all a pigment of our imagination. We have the clarity we have the clarity to see through the right lens to have that control, and that's all that matters. So that's what I want to give you guys today. Something super personal that I'm going through right now. I'm reorganizing a couple of things to make sure I stay proactive and in momentum, and I hope something resonates with you guys. But other than that, I appreciate you guys all. Hope you guys have a phenomenal motherfucking week. And as per usual, keep showing the fuck up, being proud of your guys' selves, and leading from the motherfucking front.